NASA's Mars Sample Return mission, one of the most ambitious space projects ever planned, has effectively been cancelled due to budget cuts by the US Congress. This mission was meant to be the next big step in exploring Mars, following decades of robotic missions that have studied the planet's surface and climate. Scientists hoped that bringing rock and soil samples back from Mars to Earth would allow them to answer important questions about whether life ever existed on the red planet. However, despite years of planning and technological development, the mission faced enormous challenges, both technically and financially, which ultimately led to its cancellation. For decades, scientists have been fascinated by Mars and its potential for supporting life. Rovers such as Curiosity and Perseverance have explored the Martian surface, studying rocks, soil, and the atmosphere. These missions have provided valuable insights into the planet's history. One key discovery is evidence that Mars was once warmer and wetter, with rivers, lakes, and possibly shallow seas. Such conditions might have been suitable for life. However, to truly understand whether Mars ever hosted life, scientists need more detailed analysis than is possible with the instruments on board rovers. That's why returning samples to Earth is considered so important. The Mars Sample Return (MSR) mission was designed to take these next steps. The plan was for the Perseverance rover, which landed on Mars in 2021, to collect rock and soil samples and store them in special tubes. So far, Perseverance has collected 33 such sample tubes, which are carefully selected for their potential scientific value. Once retrieved, these samples would be returned to Earth, where advanced laboratories could conduct detailed studies. Scientists believe that analyzing the samples on Earth would provide answers that could not be achieved on Mars itself, due to the limited capabilities of robotic instruments. NASA first identified returning Martian samples as a high priority in 2011. Both NASA and the European Space Agency (ESA) planned a multi-step mission that would ultimately bring the samples to Earth. This mission involved several complex stages. A lander would touch down on Mars. The Perseverance rover would deliver the sample tubes to the lander, or, if necessary, small robotic helicopters would assist in the transfer. The lander would then launch a rocket carrying the samples into Mars orbit, where another spacecraft would rendezvous with them and bring them back to Earth. This intricate plan highlights just how difficult and technologically advanced the mission would have been. Despite the ambitious vision and years of planning, the cost of the mission became a major obstacle. Estimates for the mission's price tag reached as high as $11 billion. NASA worked to develop more cost-efficient approaches, reducing the estimated cost to around $7 billion. However, because this mission involved unprecedented technology and operations, there was still a high level of uncertainty in these numbers. In addition, NASA has been under pressure to manage its overall budget, and the MSR mission required a large amount of funding. In the end, Congress decided to drastically cut the funding, leaving the mission without the resources it needed to proceed as planned. The cancellation is a huge disappointment for scientists and engineers who have dedicated years of work to the mission. The MSR represented a historic opportunity to study Mars in a way that no mission had done before. The samples already collected by Perseverance are carefully chosen to provide maximum scientific value, and the mission would have allowed scientists to conduct experiments with the full capabilities of Earth-based laboratories. Losing the mission in its original form means that these unique samples will remain on the Martian surface, at least for the foreseeable future. The fate of the sample tubes themselves is somewhat reassuring, however. Mars has a very cold, dry environment, which is not very hostile to the rock and soil samples. Scientists expect that the samples could remain intact for many years. In other words, while the MSR mission is cancelled for now, the samples may still be available for future missions if a new plan or new technology is developed to bring them back to Earth. Some funding is still allocated to developing Mars exploration technology, though it is limited and far smaller than what would be needed for a full sample return. There is also the possibility that new instruments could be developed to study the samples directly on Mars, without bringing them back to Earth. While this could offer some insights, it is unlikely to match the level of analysis that Earth laboratories can provide. Earth-based labs can use powerful instruments, specialized techniques, and controlled conditions that cannot be replicated on Mars. For this reason, the scientific community still views returning the samples to Earth as the ideal goal. The cancellation also opens opportunities for other space agencies. China has announced plans for its own Mars sample return mission. While their approach is simpler and more of a grab-and-go mission compared to the NASA ESA plan, it means China could potentially become the first country to bring Martian samples back to Earth. This adds an interesting dimension to the international space race, as NASA and ESA may one day revive the mission or develop alternative approaches to achieve their scientific goals. In summary, the cancellation of the Mars sample return mission is a major setback for planetary science. It was a mission that promised to answer fundamental questions about Mars and the possibility of life beyond Earth. Despite decades of preparation, advanced robotics, and careful planning, the combination of extreme technical complexity and high costs made it vulnerable to budget cuts. Perseverance's samples remain on the Martian surface, preserved by the planet's harsh but stable environment, leaving the door open for future missions. While the mission as planned is no longer happening, the knowledge gained from current rovers, ongoing technology development, and international efforts may eventually allow humanity to study these precious Martian samples on Earth. Ultimately, this situation illustrates the challenges of space exploration. Scientific ambition often meets practical constraints like funding, technological limitations, and political priorities. Even with these setbacks, the effort and ingenuity invested in the mission are not wasted. The lessons learned from planning such a complex mission may guide future Mars exploration efforts. And the Perseverance rover continues its work on Mars, helping scientists prepare for the day when sample return is possible. For now, Mars secrets remain just out of reach, waiting for humanity to find a safe and feasible way to bring them home.